Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, good morning. So today our group gonna present our material. The material is PQ4R, that stands for preview, questioning, read, reflect, recite, and review. But first let me introduce our member. My name is Hartika Parmatasari as the first speaker and moderator. The second speaker is Alda Bastin. The third speaker is Siti Nur Hanifa. The fourth speaker is Helena Tada. And the last speaker is Nur Lela. So let's move to the first material. They're gonna present by the first speaker. Okay, PQ4R. The first is P, that stands for preview. Preview here means that the student has to read the title first, the first paragraph, the first sentence in each body of the paragraph, and the purpose of this preview is to know the conclusion, to get the summary from each part of the reading. There are 4 steps to do this preview. The first is look through the pages of your reading passage and read the headings of the chapter and any sections dividing the chapter. And next is read the first and last paragraph in each section. The third is view the illustration in each section. Fourth is read the captions under the pictures and take a few minutes to look at charts, graphs, or maps. So, in reading text, usually has a picture or charts or graphs or maps. So for the preview, you just need to read or take a look at the picture for a few minutes, or for more importance for this preview, you need to read the first paragraph and the last paragraph. Next is Q, that stands for question. After reading the textbook or previewing, you need to create a question to answer reading questions such as the whole and or for each paragraph or section. Then return to the subheadings in the question or determine the topic and use it to arrange questions so that the focus is on reading. Question who, what, where, when, why, and how. Question here has 5 steps. The first is think about the information you learned in the preview. So after you read the preview before, you need to make a question. The second is ask yourself questions about it, about the text that you read. The third is think about what do you already know about ideas you saw during your preview. What you think about the reading text after the preview. You need to make a questions about it. So the fourth is what do you think are main points that will be raised in the chapter. The last is what do you expect to learn from reading this material. So after you read the text with preview, inside you are gonna make some questions about it. That's what we call question. So okay, next to the second speaker.
Okay, let's move to the next step. The next reading teaching strategy is read. In this step, the teacher instructs students to first, read the passage. Second, if there are ideas seem important, students should make a note of them on paper. Third is, if the book belongs to you, consider making notes in the margins and highlight important parts in the book. And the last is if you just can't imagine writing in your book, make notes on paper. In this step, students read in detail the reading material being studied. At this stage, students are expected to find answer to all the questions that have been formulated at the question stage. Students read certain reading materials provided by the teacher in learning. This reading material must be in accordance with the material being taught. At this stage, students are also expected to read actively, namely reading by reacting to what they read. During reading, students can remember, memorize, and understand the information they read. Avoid making notes that are too long. Okay, the next material will.
Okay, now we move to the reflect. Linking what students have read and answer to the questions that have been determined. So, what we have to do? First, take time to reflect on what you have read. Second, how are the passage or chapters interrelated? Third, how does the information fit into things you have already learned? 4. What new information did you learn? 5. Did the passage include the information you expect it to cover? 6. Or last, was there information that surprised you?
The next is recite. Recite, it means to repeat loudly in the mind of the student or write the answer to the question as well as determine the important things taken during the reading process. So, in this step, students are asked to reflect or recall the information they have learned by stating important points aloud and by asking and answering questions. Students can look back at the notes that have been made and use the words that are highlighted in the reading. From the notes that had been made in the previous step and based on the ideas that existed in the students, they were asked to make the essence of the material from the reading. An example of applying the recite technique that can be done by the student is: first, think about the material. The second is discuss it with someone else or write down the main points you learned. Generally, writing information down by hand will improve memory of the material. If writing is a problem for you, consider brief notes or discuss the material with other students. It is important to summarize the material in writing in using your own words. Explain it aloud to someone else or recite your notes aloud to yourself. And the last one is consider using a graphic organizer to increase your understanding of how concepts related to each other.
Okay, the next is the last review. The last step is the student are asked to read short notes or essential that he has made, repeating the entire contents of the read if necessary and briefly review all question and answers. This stage besides helping memory and clarifying understanding, also get important things that might be overlooked. Review the material repeatedly by asking yourself an essay, thinking, or writing answers. Only refer to students' records if students have them as well. There are several things that we should pay attention to in reviewing the material. The first, consider the main points of the material, and the second, have your
question answer, and the last, do you feel that the other points have been fully understood?